Behind me are two functions that we'll use to illustrate some of the concepts here in the next section. To my left here, or to your left, 30 over x, y equals 30 over x is a function that has a graph that looks like this. If you were to put this on a standard window or something similar, you'd see that. This graph has a vertical asymptote of x equals 0. It means that the graph approaches this vertical line but does not cross. This graph also has a horizontal asymptote of y equals 0. It means that the graph approaches that horizontal line but doesn't cross. So here we see the horizontal asymptote is y equals 0, that's that guy, and a vertical asymptote of x equals 0, that's that guy. We also said the domain here is all real numbers except 0, meaning any number I can plug in there except for 0 and I'd be okay. If I plug in 0 in there, I'll get 30 divided by 0, which is undefined. So that's why we say the domain is this. In this right-hand function, 30 over x minus 5 is something similar. The only thing difference here is that minus 5. The graph of this, if you put this into your graphing calculator, into y1, will look something like this. Simply moved over a little bit to the right. Let me show you what that looks like. Here's the graph of it. And here's how you put it into your calculator, into y1. Remember, parentheses on the bottom, the entire bottom. So I'm using those window settings to help you. Again, the graph looks like that. So we see here that the horizontal asymptote didn't change. It seemingly be the same horizontal line for where the graph approaches but doesn't cross. So the horizontal asymptote here is y equals 0. But the vertical asymptote actually did change. From here, it was this. Over here now, it looks like it's a little bit to the right. Before we talk about the vertical asymptote, let's look at the domain. The domain here would be all possible values of x that make this a defined expression. There's any real number can go in there except for 1, and hopefully you think in 5. 5 can't go in there because 5 minus 5 is 0, and I get 0 in the denominator. So we see here that the domain is all real numbers except 5. And the idea here now is, does that play a role, and is that related to the vertical asymptote? And the answer is yes. The vertical asymptote here moved from 0 to this guy, and it moved actually out here to 5. And so we're going to show you as you read here how that works, but the vertical asymptote here would be x equals 5. This vertical line here, this blue line, being x equals 5. More about this in a bit.